Dear friends of the non-European art and culture, today I'm talking about a topic which is very interesting and which is an important topic not only for the tribal art market. It's about restitution. One reason for this is the report which was made by Savoy and Sarr for Macron. I think it was important in France, this report, but it was more important in Germany, for example. Here Savoy is an absolute pop star. But now there's a new approach, an approach which I think is very, very interesting, and it comes from the Netherlands. And at the moment, all this restitution things, debates, I would say that the Netherlands are in front of other countries. What has happened? First, the question, why restitution in the Netherlands? Of course, they had a lot of colonies. For example, in Indonesia, so they have a lot of objects for them, more than 100,000 objects, I think at least from Indonesia. And now there was a report or an advice by the Advisory Committee for National Policy on Culinary Collections on behalf of the Council of Culture. And at the moment it looks that as if the Council of Culture, that the Ministry, that she really likes the report and that the Netherlands will do it. So they really will do it. And what is the report about? I think there are some recommendations. And one point is, and this is maybe the second important point, is first, it says that if something was really looted, then it has to go back to the country where it was looted. That means that a lot of objects will go back to Indonesia, for example. On the other hand, I think there are more than 100,000 objects in the Netherlands museums at the moment, but only for some hundred, I heard, there was a really proof that it was looted. The interesting point about this is, it's not about a debate or discussion of this. It means it was looted, then I will give it back. The second point, and this is more important, is the point with the cultural heritage. A lot of states have signed an UN resolution that they say that countries and indigenous people, they have the right for their cultural heritage. And this is the point two. The point two is, if something is there are objects where you do not really know whether they were looted or not, but if they are important for the cultural heritage, they will go back too. This is very, very important. But this means, for example, that you have two states talking on one level, and the one state says, we need this one for our cultural heritage, and then the other one says, okay, then we'll give it back to you. That means the other state, they must say what they really need. For example, I heard that the Congo, they said that they need objects for their museums, but they said we do not need Kefebe masks, for example. We have dozens of them. We don't need the Kefebes. We need other objects for our museum to teach the people. So this is the second, and for me the most important point is objects where you do not really know whether they were looted or not, where there's uncertainty. They have to go back if they were needed. And once again, I'm only talking about museums. The third point is, which is just as well, is if something was not looted, if you know that it was a fair trade, or if it was an exchange, or if it was a gift, then it might stay in the Netherlands. But of course, if a country says, but we really need this too for our cultural heritage, then there will be a discussion, a debate about it. And one solution might be the circulation of things, that you give it back. Not that you don't give it back, but you lean it, there's a loan for them, or that they can take it for some times or whatever. This is a very interesting point. And what has it to do with the tribal art market? I would say that for the tribal art market, it's a good thing, because there's a lot of hot discussions about the restitution. But if there's something between states, it will calm down, it will cool down all this discussion, which I think is a very, very important one. And are there points which are not so good? And one point is, and this is the most important thing, I guess, is you give it back to the other state. That means you have to clear once again, you have clear points. You give it to a state. You don't give it to the indigenous people. And, for example, Indonesia, for some, Indonesia is still a cultural power. For example, there are colonies like Papua. That means if something was looted from the Papua 100 years or 150 years ago, you will give it back to the Papua. You will give it back to Indonesia. And this is something strange. Or, for example, if imagine something was looted from the Amazonas area, some featherwork, and you give it back, but you don't give it to the Amazonas indigenous people. You give it back to Brasilia and to Bolsonaro. And you know Bolsonaro, what he's thinking about indigenous people and about the rainforest and all the things. So this is a point which is not so easy and which is not so fantastic and so great, but on the other hand, it gives you clear points. Now, what about other countries? Could this be, in German it's called Blaupause, could this be a blueprint for the whole thing? In France, I think it will be difficult. You know, France just, there was the origin of this new restitution debate, this report, but in France, I think they will give back more than 20 objects to Benin. And I heard one director of an ethno museum in a discussion. He said that this is great for us, a director of an ethno museum in Benin. He said this is great because we can show our people what we had for brilliant civilizations. Now, as a German, when I heard this, I think, okay, it was the kingdom of Dahomey. They made a lot of power money by being the biggest slave traders there. Other one is Kingdom of Benin, for example, Nigeria. But the point is, I'm a privileged white man. I think I have not the right to say that to the Africans that Dahomey was such a bad kingdom, because I guess that the Africans themselves, they have to see what has happened in their past, and that was not only the white people. Okay, but this is a complete different point. But on the other hand, in France, I think it's things which are in France, they are in the museums, they are property of the French state, and it's very hard to give them back. Oh, it's so hard because the property, this is law. And this is the reason why I guess France will not be happy with the Netherlands approach. It's a little different in Germany. In Germany, we do now at the moment a lot of provenance research. That means we really wanted to find out whether something was looted or not. But in Germany, first you have a federal structure. In Germany, I think for the museum, it's very important to work together with the indigenous people there. And the Netherlands point is that it's something between states. And once again, I don't know whether the German museums are so happy with this, because they want to give back human remains or some whatever to the indigenous people, not to the state. For example, I think there was I think Wiebke Arndt told this some times ago in a discussion from the Übersee Museum in Bremen. And you know that I think it was about Tonga. They had very old Tonga objects, and then there were indigenous people from Tonga looking at these things. And they said, oh, absolutely fantastic things, but we do not want to have them back. We want that you tell stories about our problems today with the help of these objects. And this is about migration, about climate change, or things like that. So we don't need it, but do something in your museum. And I think they will do a virtual exhibition with these objects and about these modern issues, which is very interesting. So in Germany, it's more this to the indigenous people. For example, there's one point, it's a boat, Stephen, which is from Diala, which is in the museum from Continent in München. And there is one family in Cameroon who says that it was looted, it was lost, please give it back to us. The other family says, no, he has not the right to have it back. We have the right for this, but we don't want to have it back. So München can say, okay, we keep it here. This, of course, would change. I sometimes heard the point of tribal art collectors that if you give something back to states, for example to Africa, that 2 years later you find them on the art market again. I would say no, this is not true. 2 points. First, if something, of course, was looted and I give it back, they can do whatever they want with these objects. For example, if I give back 100 spears and they say I don't need 100 spears, they can sell 80 of them. It's their right. It's the same like for Jewish restitution. The heirs can do with it whatever they want. But if you give back objects because they are important for the cultural heritage, then of course it would be a big loss of face if you find them at the market again 2 years later. And you can be sure that there are some criminal things behind it if you can buy 2 years later. So I would say this, which we often hear among collectors, is not the best, it's not the truest thing. 2 points at the end. First is, you know that I think in this report this is not only about giving back, but about other things like conservation too, which is a very important issue. I just published an article in German magazine Restau together with Joris Fischer about restitution and conservation. And the second and last point is one point which we should have always in mind. If we give things back, that does not mean that we wash our guilt. That does not mean that we say, okay, we have been colonized countries, now we give the objects back, and now everything is great, it's fine. No, we still have to remember what we have done in the colonial times, in the early times, and what I think we will do. See you.